Let's stay with the stories this morning or this afternoon. Crime expert from Stellenbosch University, Dr. Guy Lamb, joins us now. Dr. Lamb, thanks as always for your time here on 405. I mean, the anger at the brutal murder of this little girl is certainly a part of it, but how much of the community's reaction, particularly this morning, is as a result of a lack of faith in police?
Well, when you get these sort of incidents, it often contributes to it. It's not the sole contributing factor to all of this. I think it's number one, it's got to do with policing, and often residents in high crime areas where they see crime happening on a daily basis, they see perpetrators not being arrested, or perpetrators being arrested and being released fairly shortly due to the kind of nature of the criminal justice system, due to police investigations. It's often that kind of frustration. So yes, it does lead to kind of incidences of mob violence or vigilante violence, but often it's a sense of wanting to physically punish people. This kind of goes back for decades and decades. And we've seen this happening even before apartheid times. It was around, seeing the systems of justice that go through the state not being sufficient. You're wanting people to be punished, wanting people to be punished instantaneously, but also the view that if people are punished and, hurt in these particular ways, it will send a message to others within the community, or that others, entering the community, that there will be consequences if you commit crime. So it's a combination of factors here, but it's not only about the need to punish, but also it's a response to low levels of policing within those communities.
Certainly, and also it's a response, it's a fear response, isn't it? I was looking at an answer from a question by the Democratic Alliance in Parliament insofar as our sexual violence cases are concerned, particularly against children. And in the last 6 years, the last 6 financial years, we've seen just an incredibly alarming number of sexual violence cases against children, over 106,000. So this response from the community, as you say, it's an attempt to send a message to anyone coming into the community, but it's also out of fear for our own children.
Absolutely, it's out of fear and out of anger and a sort of sense about wanting to punish people for doing that. But of course, it's incredibly dangerous. We had a case within Parklands, within Cape Town. It was in fairly recent times where it was one of the sort of the Uber Bolt driver, I think, there were messages being circulated on WhatsApp and other kind of messaging platforms that this person was a pedophile. And residents in that particular area attacked the driver and killed him, and he wasn't actually responsible for those kind of crimes. But it does sort of demonstrate how quickly people become angry and emotional about these particular types of crime. It sort of really cuts to the heart of people's frustration about crime and violence in South Africa.
It's why we have a justice system, right? Vigilantism just cannot be the answer.
Absolutely not. But the problem we have with the criminal justice system is it's relatively slow. It's overburdened. It's under-resourced. You have very high levels of criminality happening, reported crime, police investigation, and you're seeing, people who perpetrate those crimes, very few of them actually answer for it through the criminal justice system, or the residents who have been victims of these criminals or these perpetrators don't necessarily see the results. So it's that sort of frustration, that impatience, sort of view that things are getting worse, and the only way of dealing with it is to use violence to kind of show others that you shouldn't do this because there will be consequences.
So what do we do in terms of our sexual violence levels in South Africa? Our rape statistics say we are at the same level as countries at war, where rape is used as a weapon of war. President Cyril Ramaphosa himself has held a number of gender-based violence conferences. There have been powerful stories there of survivors who told their stories. Where to from here insofar as the scourge of gender-based violence is concerned?
Well, there's been a lot of work. So we have we're known as one of the more kind of violent countries globally, which has data on men's violence against women. But we also have very good researchers who've been able to study this and produced excellent results. So we know what the problems are, and we know where the points of intervention are. And those studies have led to, we've got something called the Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Strategic Plan, which a lot of work went into. The best and the brightest who work on this issue in South Africa with community organizations came up with a very detailed plan. We also have something called the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy, also based on state-of-the-art research. And we have these documents, both have been approved by government, but we're now in the process of implementation, and we're making very slow progress around implementation. So these are the documents, these are the pathways to addressing it. It looks at, international best practice, what needs to be done, but it really needs, the resources haven't been behind it and the political will haven't been behind it. So we have the ideas, we have the the mechanisms, but we really need government to get behind it in partnership with communities.
Yeah, I imagine that it's, part of the difficulty in addressing an issue like gender-based violence is that it is so closely linked to other challenges we have in the country. Unemployment is one of them. Parents who go to work early and come home late, who perhaps rely on neighbors to take care of their children. A lack of proper sanitation, people who need to walk 10 minutes to use a toilet in the middle of the night, scholar transport, kids walking to and from school. There are so many different issues across different sectors that all impact on gender-based violence.
They do, and that's what these plans try to deal with. But of course, there are certain issues that make it significantly problematic. Number one is sort of norms and beliefs about gender within South Africa, the sort of sense that, that men are superior to women, and that men are entitled to abuse women in certain contexts, and men are entitled to kind of perpetrate sexual violence against women in certain contexts, particularly within intimate relationships. We kind of have problems around sort of pro-violence or toxic masculinity. We have sort of norms that really kind of encourage the use of kind of force and violence to get one's way and solve one's problems, particularly in one's sort of intimate relationships as well. But you're right, there are all these multiple issues that feed into it. And that's why actually we have a really good strategy and strategies to deal with it. But the point is we haven't started implementing them yet.
Our plans have never been the problem, right? Our policies have never been the problem. The papers are all there, the words look very pretty on every page, but it's the implementation.
It is the implementation. Part of the problem is it requires a whole of government approach. And that's where South Africa isn't particularly strong. So some government departments and ministries can work very well and, kind of fulfill their mandate. But when it involves certain government departments working together with, other government departments, that's where we can't seem to get it right. So there needs to be a lot of thinking about that. So, for example, when it comes to dealing with crime and violence, it's predominantly the police. But the police can't actually prevent gender-based violence. They can just investigate it, and obviously investigation process can be important. They can do visible policing and they can patrol. But a lot of the drivers of men's violence against women, it's got nothing to do with the police. It's got to do with what's happening in homes and what's happening in communities. And, there are other government departments that need to be involved here. And local municipalities need to be involved in this process.
Yeah, so much of the violence that is perpetrated against women and children happening, as you say, in the home or very close by. Dr. Guy Lamb, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. Dr. Lamb is a crime expert with Stellenbosch University. The community of Orlando East, furious. They are currently outside the police station demanding justice for little Amantle Samane. She was killed on Monday.